The crystal towers of Zephyria gleamed under three suns as the Galactic Council gathered for their monthly meeting. Ambassador Veltar adjusted his breathing apparatus and looked down at the data pad with obvious boredom. Another transmission from the Outer Rim. Another primitive world begging for attention. Signal number 47 from the Sol system, he announced to the chamber. His voice carried the tired tone of someone who had done this job for too many years. Same electromagnetic patterns. Same basic radio waves. They are still using nuclear fission for power. War Prince Zekthar of the military division laughed. The sound was harsh and grating, like metal scraping against stone. Nuclear fission? My ancestors abandoned that technology 5,000 years ago. What do they want this time? Veltar scrolled through the message on his pad. They claim to represent something called the United Nations of Earth. They want to establish peaceful contact and trade relations. They offer knowledge of their culture and science. He paused and shook his head. They also mention having defensive capabilities. The entire chamber erupted in laughter. Admiral Thorvin of the Celestial Navy wiped tears from his 6 eyes. Defensive capabilities? What are they going to do, throw rocks at us? On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Sarah Chen sat in a small room deep underground. The walls were lined with computers and communication equipment. She had been trying to contact alien civilizations for 3 years. Every day she sent the same message out into space. Every day she hoped for an answer that never came. Still nothing, she said to the empty room. Her voice echoed off the metal walls. She had sent 47 messages so far. Each one was carefully crafted to show that humans were peaceful and intelligent. Each one was ignored. Sarah pulled up the message she had sent that morning. It was simple and direct. It explained that Earth was home to 7 billion humans who wanted to join the galactic community. It listed human achievements in science, art, and culture. It promised that humans would be good neighbors and trading partners. What the message did not mention was the other project happening in the room next door. Through the thick steel door, Sarah could hear the hum of massive generators and the whir of spinning machinery. That was Project Prometheus, and it was humanity's insurance policy. General Marcus Rodriguez walked into Sarah's communication room. He was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. He had been a soldier for 30 years and had seen war in every corner of Earth. Now he was preparing for a war that might come from the stars. Any response today? He asked. Sarah shook her head. Nothing. It's like we're screaming into an empty void. Marcus sat down in the chair next to her. Maybe that's for the best. Our satellites have been detecting gravitational disturbances for months. Ships are moving out there, Sarah, big ships. Sarah looked at the data on her screen. The gravitational wave detectors had been picking up strange patterns since last winter. The patterns suggested massive objects moving faster than anything humans could build. Objects that were clearly artificial and clearly not from Earth. How many ships? She asked. Our best guess is around 300. They're still far out past Pluto's orbit, but they're heading this way. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. 300 ships meant this was not a small exploration mission. This was an invasion fleet. Back on Zephyria, the Council was reviewing Earth's file. The planet was listed as a Class C civilization, barely worth their attention. The humans had only recently developed spaceflight. Their weapons were chemical-based and primitive. Their population was still confined to one planet. I say we skip the usual protocols, suggested Ambassador Veltar. Why waste time with negotiations? Just send a fleet and take what we want. War Prince Zekthar nodded in agreement. My forces are already in the area. We can have the planet secured within a week. The humans will surrender as soon as they see our ships. Admiral Thorvin pulled up a holographic display of Earth's solar system. The blue-green planet hung in space like a jewel. Around it, the humans had built a few small space stations and sent some primitive probes to other planets. Look at this, Thorvin said, pointing to the display. They don't even have proper defenses. A few orbital platforms with chemical rockets, some nuclear missiles that can barely reach their own moon. We could take this system with a single battle cruiser. The Council members looked at Earth's technological assessment. Chemical explosives, metal projectiles, fusion reactors, and basic spaceflight. It was the same level of technology that the Council had seen from hundreds of primitive worlds. Every one of those worlds had surrendered without a fight. What the Council did not know was that humans had been lying about their capabilities for 3 years. Every signal from Earth had been carefully designed to make humans look weak and harmless. Every piece of technology that humans revealed was decades behind their actual capabilities. In a hidden facility beneath the Swiss Alps, teams of engineers worked around the clock on humanity's greatest secret. The Railgun project had been in development for 5 years, long before humans had detected the first alien ships. It started as an experiment in magnetic acceleration, but it had become something much more dangerous. Dr. James Morrison was the lead scientist on the Railgun project. He stood in front of a massive machine that stretched for 2 kilometers through the mountain. The machine was essentially a giant magnetic coil that could accelerate metal projectiles to incredible speeds. Test 47 is ready, announced his assistant, Dr. Lisa Park. She was a former NASA engineer who had joined the project when the alien ships were first detected. Target range? Asked Morrison. 50,000 kilometers. Standard tungsten rod, 2 meters long, 50 kilograms mass. Morrison nodded and pressed the activation button. The machine hummed to life with a sound like thunder, magnetic fields powerful enough to crush a car focused on a single metal rod. In less than a second, the rod was accelerated to 15% of the speed of light and shot out through a tube that led to space. 50,000 kilometers away, the tungsten rod hit a decommissioned satellite with the force of a nuclear weapon. The satellite simply vanished in a flash of light and vapor. Penetration depth? Asked Morrison. Lisa checked her instruments. The rod would have gone through 20 meters of steel armor and kept going. No known material could stop it at that speed. Morrison smiled for the first time in weeks. The council thought humans fought with chemical explosives and metal bullets. They had no idea that humans had turned simple kinetic energy into the most destructive force in the galaxy. Similar tests were happening at dozens of hidden facilities around the world. The Australian outback, the Sahara Desert, the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, and the dark side of the moon all housed railgun installations. Each one was disguised as something harmless like a research station or a mining operation. Back in Sarah's communication room, another message arrived from space. This one was not from Earth. "Sarah, you need to see this," called Marcus from the next room. Sarah ran to the main command center where dozens of screens showed data from around the solar system. The gravitational wave detectors were going crazy. Something big was happening near Jupiter. "They're here," said Marcus quietly. On the main screen, a fleet of ships appeared as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The ships were massive, each one bigger than a city. They moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with strange metals that reflected light in impossible ways. Sarah counted the ships on the screen. 297 vessels, just as Marcus had predicted. They were arranged in a classic military formation, with the largest ships in the center and smaller escort vessels around the edges. "Are they scanning us?" asked Sarah. "Constantly. They're using some kind of quantum sensor array. They can probably see every satellite and space station we have." But there were things the alien sensors could not see. The railgun installations were hidden deep underground or disguised as natural formations. The manufacturing facilities on Mars were built inside caverns and powered by geothermal energy that looked like natural heat signatures. The weapon platforms scattered throughout the asteroid belt appeared to be nothing more than mining equipment. Admiral Thorvin stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion of Stars. Through the massive view screen, he could see the small blue planet that would soon belong to the Galactic Council. Around him, his officers prepared for what they expected to be a very short war. "Scan results, Commander?" he asked. "Primitive orbital defenses, Admiral. Maybe 24 armed platforms with basic kinetic weapons. A few hundred nuclear missiles, but they're chemical-powered and slow. No energy weapons detected. No quantum shields. No faster-than-light capability." Thorvin nodded with satisfaction. It was exactly what he had expected. The humans were exactly as primitive as their signals had indicated. "Any response to our arrival?" "No, sir. They might not have detected us yet." But the humans had detected them. In command centers around the world, military leaders watched the alien fleet with growing determination. This was the moment they had prepared for. The moment when humanity would show the galaxy what humans were really capable of. President Elena Vasquez sat in the White House Situation Room, surrounded by her top advisors. On the screen in front of her, the alien fleet hung in space like a threat and a promise. A threat of conquest and a promise of the future that awaited humanity among the stars. "General Rodriguez, are our defenses ready?" she asked. "Yes, Madam President. All railgun batteries are charged and targeted. Our space fleet is hidden and ready to deploy. The manufacturing facilities are running at full capacity. Dr. Chen, one more attempt at peaceful contact? Sarah looked up from her communication equipment. I can try, but based on their formation and behavior, I don't think they're here to talk. The president nodded grimly. Then we do this the hard way. Send the message anyway. Let them know that Earth is willing to negotiate. Sarah began typing the final message that Earth would send as a free planet. It was simple and direct, just like all the others. But this time, there was an edge to it that had not been there before. This time, the message came from a species that was ready to fight for its freedom. As the message traveled through space toward the alien fleet, teams of engineers made final preparations on weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. In a few hours, the Galactic Council would learn that humans were not the primitive species they appeared to be. The war for Earth was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Thorvin stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched Earth grow larger on the main screen. The small blue planet looked peaceful from this distance. Soon it would be just another colony in the Council's vast empire. Signal from the planet, Admiral, reported his communications officer. They're requesting peaceful negotiations. Thorvin laughed. Every primitive species said the same thing when they first saw a Council fleet. They always wanted to negotiate. They always thought they had something to offer that might save them from conquest. Standard response, Commander. Give them the usual demonstration. The communications officer nodded and opened a channel to Earth. The message was simple and had been used on hundreds of worlds before. The Galactic Council had arrived. Earth had 24 hours to surrender completely. Any resistance would result in the destruction of all major cities. In the White House Situation Room, President Vasquez listened to the alien ultimatum with growing anger. The voice was cold and mechanical, translated by computer systems that reduced human language to basic concepts. Submit or die. Those were the only choices the aliens were offering. That's their idea of negotiation? Asked General Rodriguez. It's not negotiation at all, replied Dr. Chen. They're not even pretending to be interested in peace. President Vasquez looked around the room at her advisors. These were some of the smartest and most experienced people on Earth. They had spent 3 years preparing for this moment. Now it was time to see if their preparations would be enough. Send our response, she said quietly. Dr. Chen typed a short message and sent it toward the alien fleet. The message contained just one word. No. Admiral Thorvin received Earth's response and shook his head in amazement. In all his years of service, he had never seen such foolish defiance. Most species surrendered immediately when they saw the size of a Council fleet. The few that resisted usually gave up after the demonstration. Prepare the demonstration, he ordered. Target the largest asteroid in the outer system. Full-power antimatter bombardment. The fleet's weapons charged with a sound like singing crystal. Antimatter cannons that could destroy planets focused their energy on a single target. The asteroid was 20 kilometers across and made of solid iron. In a few seconds, it would be nothing but cosmic dust. The weapons fired in perfect synchronization. Beams of pure energy reached across space and struck the asteroid with the force of 1,000 nuclear bombs. The ancient rock simply vanished in a flash of light that could be seen from Earth. Broadcast that to the planet, ordered Admiral Thorvin. Let them see what happens to those who resist the Council. But the humans were not watching the demonstration with fear. In command centers around the world, military leaders studied the alien weapons with professional interest. The antimatter cannons were powerful, but they had limitations that human weapons did not share. Energy dissipation over distance, noted General Rodriguez as he watched the replay. They're powerful at close range, but they lose effectiveness as the distance increases. Recharge time between shots appears to be 30 seconds, added Dr. Morrison from the Swiss facility. Our railguns can fire continuously, Commander. Lisa Park was monitoring the alien fleet from her position on the hidden Orbital Defense Station Unity. The station was disguised as a communications satellite and had been in orbit for 2 years. From the outside, it looked like a simple metal cylinder. Inside, it contained one of the most powerful weapons ever built by human hands. All systems green, she reported to General Rodriguez. Railgun batteries charged to full power. Tungsten penetrator rounds loaded and ready. How many ships can you target from your position? Asked the general. 12 of their heavy cruisers and the flagship. The tungsten rods are programmed with guidance systems. They'll track their targets even if the ships try to evade. General Rodriguez looked at the tactical display showing the positions of all human assets. 37 railgun installations were hidden around Earth and throughout the solar system. Each one was aimed at a different section of the alien fleet. Each one was ready to fire on his command. All stations, this is Rodriguez. Prepare for Operation Iron Rain. Fire on my signal. Admiral Thorvin was growing impatient. The 24-hour deadline was still 20 hours away, but he wanted to end this quickly. The humans had seen his demonstration and received his ultimatum. It was time for them to surrender. Any response from the planet? He asked. Nothing, Admiral. They appear to be ignoring our communications. Thorvin frowned. This was unusual behavior for a primitive species. Most worlds either surrendered immediately or begged for more time. Earth was doing neither. Scan the planet again. Are they preparing some kind of defense? The sensor officer checked his instruments. Negative, Admiral. Same primitive installations we detected before. A few orbital platforms with chemical rockets. Some nuclear missiles that couldn't reach us at this range. No sign of advanced weapons. But the aliens were looking for the wrong kind of weapons. Their sensors were designed to detect energy signatures from plasma cannons and particle beams. They could easily spot fusion reactors and antimatter storage facilities. What they could not detect were simple magnetic coils buried deep underground. War Prince Zekthar was studying the tactical situation from his own ship. Something about this felt wrong to him. In his 500 years of military service, he had conquered dozens of worlds. Most primitive species panicked when they saw a council fleet. They sent desperate messages begging for mercy. They offered to give up anything in exchange for their lives. The humans were doing none of these things. They had responded to the ultimatum with a single word, and then gone silent. That was not normal behavior for a defeated enemy. Commander, deploy long-range scouts, he ordered. I want a complete scan of the entire solar system. Sir, our initial scans showed nothing but primitive mining operations and research stations. Scan them again. Something doesn't feel right about this. The scout ships spread out across the solar system, their sensors probing every asteroid and moon. They found exactly what they expected to find. Mining operations that appeared to be extracting metals from asteroids. Research stations that seemed to be studying radiation from the sun. Communication arrays that looked like they were used for broadcasting messages between planets. What the scouts did not realize was that they were looking at the most sophisticated deception in human history. Every installation had been designed to fool exactly this kind of scan. The mining operations were actually weapons platforms. The research stations were manufacturing facilities. The communication arrays were targeting systems. Dr. Morrison watched the alien scouts from his facility in the Swiss Alps. His railgun installation was buried 3 kilometers underground and disguised as a particle physics laboratory. From space, it looked like humans were trying to understand the basic forces of the universe. In reality, they were preparing to use those forces as weapons. Alien scout ship approaching, reported his assistant. It's scanning us with some kind of quantum sensor array. Let them scan, replied Morrison calmly. They'll see exactly what we want them to see. The alien scout ship detected a facility that was clearly being used for scientific research. The energy readings were consistent with a basic particle accelerator. The humans appeared to be smashing atoms together to study physics. It was exactly the kind of primitive science that the Council expected from a Class C civilization. The scout ship moved on, never realizing that it had just passed over a weapon that could destroy their entire fleet. Admiral Thorvin was reviewing the scout reports when the 24-hour deadline expired. Every scan had confirmed the same thing. Earth had no advanced weapons and no significant defenses. The planet was ready for conquest. All ships prepare for orbital bombardment, he ordered. Target their major cities first. A few strikes should convince them to surrender. The fleet moved into attack formation. 300 ships arranged themselves around Earth like predators surrounding prey, their weapons charged with deadly energy. In a few minutes, millions of humans would be dead and the planet would belong to the Council. First target, the capital city called Washington, announced the weapons officer. Antimatter cannon charged and ready. Fire, ordered Admiral Thorvin. The antimatter beam lanced down toward Earth with enough energy to destroy a mountain. But instead of striking the White House, the beam hit something impossible. A glowing barrier of energy appeared around the city and absorbed the blast completely. What was that? Demanded Thorvin. Unknown, Admiral. Some kind of defensive screen. But our sensors showed no shield generators on the planet. Thorvin was confused but not worried. Every species had some surprises when they were cornered. The humans had apparently hidden a few defensive systems from the initial scans. No matter. The Council fleet had enough firepower to overwhelm any primitive defense. All ships concentrated bombardment. Overload whatever shields they have. The entire fleet opened fire at once. Hundreds of antimatter beams struck Earth cities simultaneously. The energy unleashed in those few seconds was enough to sterilize the surface of a planet. But the shields held. Every major city on Earth was protected by barriers that seemed to absorb unlimited amounts of energy. The Council's most powerful weapons were having no effect at all. "How is this possible?" asked War Prince Zekthar. Those shields would require technology far beyond what this species should possess. Admiral Thorvin was beginning to realize that something was very wrong. The humans had clearly been hiding their true capabilities, but it was too late to retreat now. The Council fleet was committed to battle. "Deploy the close assault ships," he ordered. "If we can't blast through their defenses, we'll land troops and take the planet by force." But as the first wave of assault ships approached Earth's atmosphere, they encountered something that no Council military leader had ever seen before. Streaks of light began rising from the planet's surface. At first they looked like simple missile launches. Then the streaks began moving faster than any missile ever built. The first assault ship was hit by what appeared to be a simple metal rod. The rod was only 2 meters long and 50 kilograms in mass. It should have bounced harmlessly off the ship's armor. Instead, it punched completely through the vessel and out the other side, leaving a perfectly round hole that went from bow to stern. "What kind of weapon was that?" demanded Admiral Thorvin. "Unknown, Admiral. It appears to be a simple kinetic projectile, but it was moving at 15% of light speed." More streaks of light rose from Earth's surface. Each one struck an assault ship with devastating accuracy. The metal rods were too small for the ship's energy weapons to target, and they were moving too fast for evasive maneuvers. In less than a minute, the entire first wave of assault ships had been destroyed. Not damaged or disabled, completely destroyed. Each ship had been pierced through its center by a tungsten rod, moving at relativistic speed. Commander Lisa Park smiled as she watched her targets being eliminated one by one. The Orbital Defense Station Unity had just fired its first combat salvo, and every shot had found its mark. "First wave eliminated," she reported to General Rodriguez. "Reloading for second wave." "Understood," replied the general. "All stations commence Operation Iron Rain. Show them what humans are really capable of." All across the solar system, railgun installations that had been hidden for years suddenly came to life. What the aliens had thought were primitive mining operations revealed themselves to be weapon platforms capable of launching projectiles at 20% of light speed. Admiral Thorvin watched in horror as his invasion fleet began to die. Ships that had survived dozens of battles against advanced civilizations were being destroyed by what appeared to be simple chunks of metal. But these were not simple chunks of metal. They were precisely engineered weapons moving at speeds that made them unstoppable. "All ships retreat to safe distance," he ordered desperately. But there was no safe distance from railgun fire. The tungsten rods maintained their deadly momentum across vast distances. Ships that tried to retreat found themselves under fire from platforms they had never detected. War Prince Zekthar's flagship was hit by 3 rounds simultaneously. The first rod disabled his main weapons. The second destroyed his engines. The third punched through his command bridge and killed half his crew. "This is impossible," he gasped as his ship began to lose atmosphere. "They're using kinetic weapons. Kinetic weapons should not be effective against quantum shields." But the Council had forgotten the basic laws of physics. Energy could be deflected or absorbed. Matter could not. When a solid object moving at relativistic speed hits a quantum shield, the shield simply fails. There is no technology in the galaxy that can stop pure kinetic force. The Battle of Earth was only 10 minutes old, and the Galactic Council was already losing. Admiral Thorvin gripped the arms of his command chair as another impact shook his flagship. Through the viewscreen, he could see his fleet being torn apart by weapons that should not exist. Simple metal rods were destroying ships that had conquered half the galaxy. "Damage report," he shouted over the sound of alarms. 17 ships destroyed, Admiral. 23 more showing critical damage. The humans are firing from positions all over their solar system. Thorvin could not believe what he was hearing. His sensors showed no major weapon installations. Just mining platforms and research stations. But those platforms were somehow launching projectiles at incredible speeds. How are they doing this? Where are the weapons coming from? His tactical officer pointed to the holographic display floating above the command center. Red dots marked the locations where enemy fire was originating. The dots were scattered throughout the asteroid belt, on the surfaces of moons and hidden in what looked like empty space. The mining operations were fake, Admiral. They're all weapon platforms. We've been tricked. Commander Lisa Park watched the alien fleet through her targeting computer. From her position on the defense station Unity, she had a clear view of the enemy formation. The aliens were trying to retreat, but they were moving too slowly. Her railgun could hit targets at any range. Target acquired, she announced to her crew. Enemy flagship range 90,000 kilometers. Firing tungsten penetrator. The railgun fired with a sound like thunder. Magnetic coils that could lift a battleship accelerated a 2-meter tungsten rod to 45,000 kilometers per second. The rod crossed the distance to the flagship in exactly 2 seconds. Admiral Thorvin saw the streak of light approaching his ship. For a moment he thought it was some kind of energy beam. Then the tungsten rod punched through his quantum shields like they were made of paper. The impact sent shockwaves through the entire ship. The rod entered through the forward hull and exited through the engine compartment, leaving a perfectly round hole 2 meters wide. Along the way, it destroyed 3 decks, the main computer core, and half the ship's power systems. Hull breach on decks 4 through 7, reported the damage control officer. Main power down to 30%. Engines offline. Thorvin realized that his flagship was crippled. The simple metal rod had done more damage than a direct hit from an antimatter cannon. The worst part was that the humans had hundreds more where that came from. Signal the fleet, he ordered. Emergency withdrawal to minimum safe distance. But War Prince Zekthar had a different idea. The military commander was not ready to admit defeat. His ship had taken 3 hits and was barely functional, but he still had enough weapons to fight back. All remaining ships, target the planet's surface, he commanded. If we cannot retreat, we destroy everything. 20 ships turned their antimatter cannons toward Earth. The combined firepower was enough to crack a continent. But before they could fire, more tungsten rods streaked up from the planet's surface. The rods moved too fast for the alien targeting computers to track. Each one was guided by sophisticated electronics that could adjust course during flight. The ships tried to use their energy weapons to shoot down the incoming projectiles, but it was like trying to stop bullets with flashlights. Dr. Morrison stood in his underground facility and watched the battle through satellite feeds. His railgun installation in the Swiss Alps had just fired its 15th shot of the day. Every shot had found its target. Every shot had crippled or destroyed an enemy ship. Reload complete, announced his assistant, Dr. Park. Target selection? Morrison studied the tactical display. The alien fleet was spread out across 1 million kilometers of space, but his railgun could reach any of them. The tungsten rods maintained their velocity over interplanetary distances. Target the ship that's charging weapons, he said. The big one on the left flank, the railgun fired again. This time the tungsten rod was programmed with an explosive tip. When it hit the alien ship, it would detonate inside the hull and cause maximum damage. The rod struck the ship's main reactor and exploded with the force of a nuclear bomb. The entire vessel was torn apart from the inside. Metal fragments scattered across space as the ship's antimatter containment failed. General Rodriguez watched the battle from his command center deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain. Displays showed the positions of all human and alien forces throughout the solar system. The aliens were losing badly, but they were not giving up. Status report, he ordered. 37 enemy ships destroyed, 28 crippled, reported his aide. All our installations are operational. No human casualties, Rodriguez nodded with satisfaction. Operation Iron Rain was working exactly as planned. The aliens had expected to face primitive chemical weapons and nuclear missiles. Instead, they were fighting the most advanced kinetic weapons in the galaxy. Order all platforms to concentrate fire on the command ships, he said. Take out their leadership and the rest will surrender. But the aliens were not ready to surrender yet. Admiral Thorvin had managed to restore partial power to his flagship. He was preparing for one last desperate attack. All ships that can still fight, form up on me, he ordered. We're going to ram the planet. If we can't conquer it, we'll destroy it. 15 ships moved into formation behind the flagship. Their hulls were scarred and their weapons were mostly destroyed, but they still had enough mass to cause terrible damage if they struck Earth. Commander Park saw the alien formation and realized what they were planning. "General, the enemy ships are on a collision course with Earth. They're going to try to ram the planet." "Not if we stop them first," replied Rodriguez. "All stations target the ramming force. Full rate of fire." Every railgun platform in the solar system turned toward the approaching ships. Tungsten rods began streaming through space like deadly rain. The aliens had made themselves easy targets by flying in formation. The first ship was hit by 6 rods simultaneously. The tungsten projectiles shredded the hull and turned the vessel into a cloud of debris. The second ship lasted 3 seconds longer before it was destroyed in the same way. Admiral Thorvin watched his remaining ships die one by one. The human weapons were too accurate and too powerful. There was no defense against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. "This is not possible," he said to himself. "We are the most advanced military force in the galaxy. How can primitives defeat us?" But humans were not primitives. They had been hiding their true capabilities for 3 years. Every signal from Earth had been designed to make humans look weak and helpless. Every piece of technology they had revealed was decades behind their actual capabilities. The final alien ship in the ramming force was Admiral Thorvin's flagship. It was hit by 12 tungsten rods in less than a second. The ship broke apart like a toy struck by hammers. Admiral Thorvin died instantly when the command bridge was vaporized. War Prince Zekthar was the highest-ranking alien officer still alive. His ship was drifting helplessly with no engines and no weapons. Around him, the remains of the Galactic Council fleet floated in space like metallic snow. "Damage assessment," he ordered weakly. 70% of the fleet destroyed, Prince. Most of the remaining ships are too damaged to fight. We have lost this battle. Zekthar looked at the tactical display. In 30 minutes of combat, the humans had destroyed the most powerful military force the Council had ever assembled. They had done it with weapons that seemed simple, but were actually more advanced than anything the galaxy had seen. "How many humans have we killed?" he asked. "Our sensors show no human casualties, Prince. Their defenses held completely." That was the most shocking news of all. The Council fleet had unleashed enough firepower to destroy a dozen planets. But Earth's shields had absorbed every attack without failing. The humans had not lost a single person. Dr. Chen sat in her communication room and composed a message to the surviving alien ships. The battle was over, but there was still a chance for peace. She typed carefully, choosing words that would not sound threatening. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Council," she began. "Your fleet has been defeated, but we do not wish to cause unnecessary death. Any ship that withdraws from our solar system will be allowed to leave safely. Those who wish to negotiate can send a representative to our orbital platform." The message was broadcast on all frequencies. Within minutes, responses began coming back from the alien ships. Some messages were angry and defiant. A few captains swore revenge and promised that the Council would return with a larger fleet. But most of the responses were different. Most of the alien officers were asking for terms of surrender. War Prince Zekthar was the first to respond formally. His message was simple and direct. "I request permission to meet with your military leaders to discuss terms." General Rodriguez received the message and smiled. After 30 years of military service, he had learned to recognize defeat in an enemy's voice. The aliens were ready to talk. "Grant his request," he told Dr. Chen. "But the meeting happens on our terms, at our location with our security." President Vasquez watched the battle reports from the White House Situation Room. In less than an hour, Earth had gone from being an unknown world to being the most feared military power in the galaxy. The aliens who had come to conquer them were now begging for mercy. "Casualty report?" she asked. "0 human casualties, Madam President," reported General Rodriguez. "All our installations are intact and operational." "And the aliens?" 210 ships destroyed. 87 ships disabled or crippled. Estimated 40,000 alien military personnel killed. The president felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Relief that Earth was safe, but sadness for the lives that had been lost. The aliens had started this war, but she took no pleasure in their deaths. "Open a channel to the surviving enemy commanders," she ordered. "It's time to end this." The president's message was broadcast to every alien ship in the solar system. Her words were translated into dozens of languages and transmitted on every frequency the aliens used. "I am President Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Government," she began. "Your fleet came here with the intention of conquering our world. You have learned that we are not as helpless as you believed, but this war can end now if you choose to end it." She paused and looked directly into the camera. "We are not a cruel people. We do not enjoy killing. Any ship that withdraws from our solar system immediately will be allowed to leave in peace. Those who wish to negotiate a formal ceasefire can send representatives to our orbital platform." The message had an immediate effect. Most of the surviving alien ships began moving away from Earth. Their commanders had seen enough of human weapons to know that continued fighting meant certain death. But a few ships remained. These were commanded by officers who wanted to understand what had happened. How had a primitive species defeated the most advanced fleet in the galaxy? War Prince Zekthar was among those who stayed. His ship was too damaged to travel far, but even if it had been intact, he would have remained. He needed to know how the humans had done this. Commander Park docked her shuttle with the alien flagship and stepped aboard with a small security team. The ship's interior was unlike anything she had ever seen. The walls were made of crystal that glowed with soft light. The air had a strange metallic taste that made her breathing apparatus necessary. War Prince Zekthar was waiting for her in what remained of his command center. He was a tall, thin creature with 6 arms and skin like polished metal. His eyes were large and dark, filled with intelligence and something that might have been respect. "I am War Prince Zekthar of the Galactic Council Military," he said through a translation device. "I formally surrender my ship and crew to your custody." Commander Park nodded politely. "I am Commander Lisa Park of the Earth Defense Force. I accept your surrender." Zekthar looked around at the wreckage of his command center. "I have fought in over 200 battles," he said quietly. "I have conquered 47 worlds. I have never seen weapons like yours." "Our weapons are not that advanced," replied Park. "They're actually quite simple. We just use them differently than you do." "Simple?" "Those projectiles moved at 20% of light speed." Park smiled. "Like I said, we just use them differently." The War Prince studied her with his dark eyes. "Your species has been hiding your true capabilities for years, have you not?" "We've been careful about what information we share," Park admitted. "We wanted to be sure of your intentions before revealing our defenses." Zekthar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your caution was wise. The Council underestimated you badly." As the first day of the Earth Council War came to an end, the galaxy began to realize that everything had changed. A species that had been ignored and dismissed had just defeated the most powerful military force in known space. The signals that the Council had been ignoring for 3 years suddenly seemed much more important. Earth was no longer a primitive world begging for attention. It was a military power that could threaten any fleet that approached it. And in hidden facilities around the solar system, human engineers were already working on the next generation of weapons. The railguns had been just the beginning. War Prince Zekthar sat in the medical bay of the human orbital station, his wounds being treated by Dr. Elizabeth Harper. The alien commander had refused to be sedated during the surgery. He wanted to stay alert and observe everything around him. "Your medical technology is interesting," he said through the translation device. "More advanced than your signals indicated." Dr. Harper smiled as she worked on repairing damage to his secondary breathing apparatus. "Most of our technology is more advanced than our signals indicated, Prince. We've been careful about what we reveal." Through the window of the medical bay, Zekthar could see the wreckage of his fleet floating in space. 70% of his ships had been destroyed in less than an hour. The remaining vessels were either surrendering or fleeing toward the edge of the solar system. "How long have you been preparing for this?" he asked. 3 years, replied Dr. Harper. "Ever since we first detected your ships approaching our system." Zekthar was shocked. "You detected us from that distance? Our stealth technology is supposed to be undetectable. Your ships bend space-time when they travel. That creates gravitational waves that our sensors can pick up. We've been tracking Council movements for years." The War Prince realized that the Council had been operating under false assumptions from the beginning. They thought they were invisible to primitive sensors. They thought they had complete surprise. In reality, the humans had been watching them all along. Meanwhile, Admiral Sarah Kim, was preparing for the next phase of Earth's defense. She stood on the bridge of the battleship Defiance, hidden behind the dark side of the moon. Around her, 11 other ships waited in the shadows. The Earth fleet had been built in secret over the past 3 years. Each ship was constructed in hidden facilities on the lunar surface, using materials mined from asteroids. The aliens had assumed that human space activities were primitive exploration missions. They had never suspected that humans were building a war fleet. "Status report," Admiral Kim ordered. "All ships ready for deployment, Admiral," reported her tactical officer. "Railgun systems charged and operational, long-range targeting computers online." Admiral Kim looked at the tactical display showing the positions of the remaining alien ships. Most were retreating, but a few were still trying to regroup for another attack. It was time to show them that Earth's defenses extended far beyond the planet itself. "All ships prepare to deploy. Let's introduce our visitors to the Earth Space Navy." The 12 human ships emerged from behind the moon like ghosts materializing from darkness. Each vessel was over 1 kilometer long and bristled with railgun turrets. They moved with a grace that surprised the alien commanders who had expected clumsy chemical rockets. Captain Marcus Rodriguez, son of General Rodriguez, commanded the destroyer Vigilance. He had been born in space aboard one of the construction platforms and had never set foot on Earth. To him, the defense of humanity was not about protecting a planet. It was about protecting an idea. "Target acquired," reported his weapons officer. "Alien cruiser attempting to regroup with the main force." "Range?" asked Captain Rodriguez. 150,000 kilometers and closing. "Fire when ready." The Vigilance's main railgun fired with a flash of magnetic lightning. The tungsten rod accelerated to 20% of light speed and crossed the distance to the alien ship in 8 seconds. The projectile struck the cruiser's engine section and tore through the entire length of the vessel. "Direct hit," reported the weapons officer. "Enemy ship is breaking apart." Admiral Kim watched the engagement from her flagship. The human ships were performing exactly as designed: fast, accurate, and deadly. Each vessel carried enough ammunition to destroy 100 enemy ships. "Signal from the Planetary Defense Network," reported her communications officer. "General Rodriguez is requesting that we escort the fleeing vessels to the edge of the system." "Understood. All ships form escort formation. Let's make sure our guests find their way home." But not all the alien ships were retreating. Admiral Corvin of the 2nd Battle Group had managed to keep 30 ships together near Jupiter's orbit. He was planning one final assault on Earth, using tactics that had worked against other primitive species. "Deploy the assault carriers," he ordered. "We'll land troops on the planet's surface and take their cities one by one." The assault carriers were massive ships designed to transport ground forces. Each one carried 10,000 soldiers and enough equipment to conquer a continent. Admiral Corvin was confident that even if the humans had space-based weapons, they would not be able to stop a ground invasion. What Admiral Corvin did not know was that humans had been expecting this exact tactic. Dr. Morrison and his team had spent months preparing for the possibility of a ground assault. "Alien assault carriers detected," reported Dr. Park from the Swiss facility. "They're moving toward Earth orbit." "Perfect," replied Dr. Morrison. "Time to show them our surface-to-space capabilities." The assault carriers approached Earth with confidence. Their commanders had studied the planet's defenses and concluded that the railgun platforms could only target ships in space. Once they landed troops on the surface, the weapons would be useless. They were wrong. The first assault carrier was hit by a railgun round fired from the Australian facility. The tungsten projectile punched through the ship's troop compartments and detonated inside the vehicle bay. The explosion tore the massive vessel apart and killed most of the soldiers aboard. "How is this possible?" demanded Admiral Corvin. "Those weapons should not be able to hit us at this angle." But human railguns were not limited by the same constraints as energy weapons. The magnetic accelerators could fire in any direction, and the tungsten rods could adjust their course during flight. There was no safe approach to Earth for enemy ships. The second assault carrier tried to use evasive maneuvers, but the tungsten rods were faster than any ship. The projectile struck the carrier's command section and disabled its navigation systems. The ship began tumbling out of control toward Earth's atmosphere. Admiral Kim's fleet arrived just as the third assault carrier was being destroyed. The human ships spread out in a defensive formation that blocked all approaches to the planet. "Admiral Corvin," she broadcast on open frequencies. "This is Admiral Sarah Kim of the Earth Space Navy. Your assault has failed. Withdraw your ships immediately, or they will be destroyed." Admiral Corvin looked at the tactical display and realized that he was surrounded. The human fleet had appeared out of nowhere and taken perfect positions to intercept his remaining ships. Worse, the planetary defense systems were still firing with deadly accuracy. "Who are you people?" he transmitted back. "Your technology should not be this advanced." "We're humans," replied Admiral Kim simply, "and you've just learned that we don't like uninvited guests." The battle for Jupiter's orbit lasted only 20 minutes. The human ships moved with precision that amazed even their enemies. Each vessel carried dozens of railgun turrets that could fire continuously without recharging. The alien ships, designed to fight energy weapon battles, had no defense against the constant rain of tungsten projectiles. Dr. Chen watched the battle from her communication center and felt a mixture of pride and sadness. Humanity had proven that it could defend itself against any threat. But the cost in alien lives was enormous. She hoped that future encounters with other species would not require such violence. "Sarah," said General Rodriguez as he entered her room, "we're receiving surrender requests from 17 more alien commanders. They want to know what terms we're offering." "What terms should we offer?" she asked. "The same as always. Leave our solar system and never return with hostile intent. Any ship that wants to establish peaceful trade relations can send a single unarmed vessel to negotiate." Dr. Chen began composing the surrender terms. She was careful to make them fair but clear. Earth was willing to be peaceful, but only with those who approached in peace. President Vasquez was meeting with her cabinet to discuss the long-term implications of the battle. In one day, Earth had gone from being unknown to being the most feared military power in the galaxy. That would bring opportunities, but also dangers. "The aliens will be back," warned Secretary of Defense Harrison. "Maybe not this fleet, but others will come. They'll want to know how we defeated them." "Then we need to be ready," replied the president. "How quickly can we expand our defenses?" General Rodriguez pulled up a holographic display showing human military installations throughout the solar system. "We have manufacturing facilities on Mars, Europa, and Titan. With full production, we can double our fleet size every 6 months." "And the railgun platforms?" "We can build them anywhere. There's raw materials. The asteroid belt alone could support thousands of installations." The president nodded thoughtfully. "Do it. I want Earth to be so well defended that no one will ever consider attacking us again." But Admiral Kim had a different idea. She was meeting with her ship commanders aboard the Defiance, discussing the possibility of taking the war to the enemy. "The aliens expect us to stay in our home system," she said. "They think we're a defensive force that can't project power beyond Earth orbit." Captain Rodriguez leaned forward in his chair. "Are you suggesting we go on the offensive, Admiral?" "I'm suggesting we show the galaxy that Earth can protect more than just itself. There are probably dozens of species living under Council domination. Some of them might want to be free." The idea was tempting. Human ships with railgun weapons could probably defeat any Council fleet they encountered, but it would also mean expanding the war beyond Earth's solar system. "The decision isn't ours to make," Admiral Kim admitted. "But we should be prepared for the possibility." War Prince Zekthar was listening to these discussions from his medical bed. The translation device picked up conversations throughout the station, and he was learning more about human capabilities every hour. "Dr. Harper," he said during his next treatment session, "how many ships do you actually have?" The doctor paused in her work. "Why do you ask?" "My people will want to know what they're facing if they decide to return." Dr. Harper considered her answer carefully. "Enough to defend ourselves," she said finally, "and enough to help our friends defend themselves too." Zekthar understood the implication. The humans were not just building a defensive force. They were building an offensive capability that could threaten Council territories throughout the galaxy. As the first week after the battle ended, the last alien ships left Earth's solar system. Some carried messages of surrender. Others carried reports of the devastating human weapons. All carried the news that the galaxy had a new military power. The Galactic Council on Zephyria received the reports with growing alarm. The species they had dismissed as primitive had just destroyed their finest fleet. Worse, the humans seemed to have weapons technology that the Council had never seen before. "How many ships do they have?" demanded Council Leader Veltar. "Unknown," replied the messenger. Admiral Kim's fleet appeared without warning and disappeared just as quickly. They could have dozens or hundreds of ships. And these railgun weapons? They fire solid projectiles at 20% of light speed. Our shields and armor provide no protection. The weapons appear to have unlimited range and ammunition. Veltar realized that the Council faced a crisis unlike any in their history. For the first time in 1,000 years, they had encountered a species that could challenge their military supremacy. "What are the humans demanding?" he asked. "Nothing," replied the messenger. "They seem content to defend their own territory, but they've made it clear that any hostile approach to their system will be met with force. The Council would have to decide whether to accept this new reality or prepare for a much larger war. Either choice would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever." And in hidden facilities throughout the Sol system, human engineers continued their work. The weapons that had defeated the first Council fleet were already being improved. New designs were being tested. New tactics were being developed. Earth was ready for whatever came next. 3 months after the Battle of Earth, War Prince Zekthar stood in the communication center of the human orbital station. His wounds had healed, and his request for asylum had been approved by the Earth Council. He was no longer a prisoner. He was Earth's first alien citizen. "The Council is gathering their largest fleet ever assembled," he told President Vasquez during their weekly briefing. 5,000 ships from every corner of the galaxy. They call it the Final Armada." President Vasquez nodded calmly. She had expected this response. The Galactic Council could not allow Earth's victory to go unanswered. Their entire empire was built on the belief that they were militarily supreme. "How long before they arrive?" she asked. 2 years, maybe 3. "They need time to gather ships from distant territories and prepare for a long campaign." "That's enough time," said General Rodriguez. "More than enough." Zekthar looked puzzled. "Enough time for what? To build more defenses?" General Rodriguez smiled. "To change the entire balance of power in the galaxy." Dr. Chen entered the briefing room carrying a datapad with the latest intelligence reports. Over the past 3 months, Earth had been receiving messages from dozens of species throughout the galaxy. Word of the Council's defeat had spread far and wide. "Status report on the Resistance Network," she announced. 47 species have made contact requesting military assistance. 12 have already received shipments of railgun technology. 6 have successfully tested the weapons against Council patrol fleets. President Vasquez studied the galactic map displayed on the main screen. Red dots marked Council territories. Blue dots marked species that had contacted Earth. Green dots marked worlds that had already begun their own rebellions. "The Council is losing control," she observed. "Their empire is falling apart." "It was always fragile," explained Zekthar. "The Council ruled through fear and superior weapons. Once that advantage was broken, rebellion was inevitable." Admiral Kim entered the briefing room fresh from a mission to the Kepler system. Her fleet had just delivered railgun platforms to the Meridian Alliance, a group of species that had been fighting Council domination for decades. "The Meridians send their thanks," she reported. "They used our weapons to destroy a Council patrol fleet yesterday. No human casualties, minimal Meridian losses." "How many Council ships were destroyed?" asked General Rodriguez. 37 vessels, including 2 heavy cruisers. The Meridians are calling it the liberation of Kepler Prime. This was the new reality. Human technology was spreading throughout the galaxy, carried by volunteer crews aboard ships that seemed to appear from nowhere. The Council's intelligence services could not track them all. Commander Lisa Park had been promoted to Admiral and now commanded the Stealth Reconnaissance Fleet. Her ships used new cloaking technology based on gravitational wave manipulation. They could observe Council movements without being detected. "Latest intelligence from the core worlds," she reported. "The Council is having trouble maintaining order. 3 more systems have declared independence this month. The Andromedan Collective has stopped paying tribute. The Centauri Federation is demanding representation in the Council chambers." President Vasquez looked around the room at her advisors. These people had guided Earth through its first contact with alien civilization. Now they were helping to reshape the entire galaxy. "What's our current military status?" she asked. "Fleet strength is up to 200 ships," reported Admiral Kim. "All equipped with 3rd-generation railgun systems. We have defensive platforms in 17 solar systems and manufacturing facilities on 34 worlds. Human casualties: 0 combat deaths in the past month. 15 injuries from industrial accidents during platform construction. The contrast with Council casualties was stark. Over the past 3 months, rebel forces using human weapons had destroyed nearly 1,000 Council ships. The railgun technology was proving devastatingly effective against every type of defense the Council possessed. Dr. Morrison had been working with alien scientists to improve the railgun designs. The second-generation weapons could fire guided projectiles at 25% of light speed. The third-generation systems could achieve 30% and had targeting computers that could track multiple targets simultaneously. The physics are actually quite simple, he explained. To a group of refugee scientists from the Vegan Republic, magnetic acceleration has no theoretical upper limit. The only constraint is the amount of power you can generate. But the Council's energy weapons are supposed to be more advanced, protested Dr. Kelvac, a vegan physicist. Advanced doesn't always mean better, replied Dr. Morrison. Energy weapons are complex and require exotic materials. Railguns can be built with basic metals and simple electronics. Any species with industrial capability can manufacture them. This was the key to Earth's strategy. Human weapons were not just powerful, they were easy to produce and maintain. Species that had been dependent on Council technology for centuries could now build their own defenses. War Prince Zekthar had become Earth's most valuable intelligence asset. His knowledge of Council military doctrine and strategy helped human planners stay ahead of their enemies. The final armada will use the traditional, overwhelming force approach, he explained during a strategic planning session. 5,000 ships in a single massive formation. They believe that numerical superiority will overcome your technological advantages. Will it work? Asked Admiral Kim. Zekthar considered the question carefully. 3 years ago, yes. Even 1 year ago, probably, but now, your weapons have improved too much. Your tactics have evolved too far. General Rodriguez pulled up a holographic display showing the planned deployment of Earth's defenses. The Sol system now contained over 1,000 railgun platforms. The asteroid belt had been turned into a fortress that could destroy any approaching fleet. Let them come, he said quietly. We'll be ready. But Earth's strategy was not purely defensive. President Vasquez had authorized Operation Liberation, a coordinated campaign to free as many Council territories as possible before the final armada arrived. Admiral Kim commanded the operation from her flagship Defiance. Her fleet had grown to 50 ships, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a traditional battle group. They moved through Council space like ghosts, appearing suddenly to deliver weapons and supplies to rebel forces. Next target is the Tau Ceti system, she announced to her fleet commanders. Intelligence reports that the local population is ready to revolt. They just need weapons and training. Captain Rodriguez, now commanding the heavy cruiser Determination, studied the tactical display. Council presence? 1 orbital station and a patrol fleet of 20 ships. Standard garrison force. Rules of engagement. Minimize casualties where possible, but the mission comes first. The people of Tau Ceti have been slaves for 200 years. It's time to set them free. The Battle of Tau Ceti lasted exactly 47 minutes. Human ships emerged from hyperspace and immediately began targeting Council vessels with railgun fire. The patrol fleet tried to respond with energy weapons, but the human ships were too fast and too well armored. The orbital station surrendered after watching half the patrol fleet be destroyed. The local population rose up as soon as the Council forces were neutralized. Within hours, Tau Ceti had declared independence and requested membership in the growing Free Worlds Alliance. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. Species that had been conquered centuries ago were rediscovering their independence. Ancient enemies were uniting against the common threat of Council domination. Dr. Chen found herself coordinating a communication network that spanned hundreds of star systems. Her original job had been to contact alien civilizations. Now she was helping to organize the largest rebellion in galactic history. Message from the Rigel Coalition, she reported during the daily briefing. They've successfully tested our railgun designs. 3 Council patrol fleets have been destroyed in their territory this week. Any requests for additional support? Asked President Vasquez. They want technical advisors and manufacturing equipment. They're ready to start building their own weapons platforms. Approved. Send the Endeavor with a full engineering team. The Free Worlds Alliance was growing faster than anyone had expected. What had started as Earth's defense against invasion had become a galaxy-wide revolution. Species that had never heard of humans were using human weapons to fight for their freedom. War Prince Zekthar watched these developments with amazement. In his 500 years of life, he had never seen the galactic order change so quickly or so completely. "Your species has accomplished something remarkable," he told President Vasquez during one of their meetings. "You've given the galaxy hope." "We've given them weapons," she replied. "They're giving themselves hope." It's the same thing. For too long, the Council has maintained peace through fear. Now species have a choice. They can fight back. As the second year after first contact began, Earth received an unexpected message. It came from the core worlds, the ancient heart of the Galactic Council's empire. "This is Governor Telvanni of the Zephyrian Colonial Authority," the message began. "I speak for a coalition of species within the Council territories. We want to negotiate." President Vasquez listened to the full message with growing interest. The Council was fracturing from within. Some of their own member species were questioning centuries of authoritarian rule. "They're offering to recognize Earth's sovereignty," she told her cabinet. "In exchange, they want us to stop supporting rebellions in their core territories. What's your response?" asked General Rodriguez. "We negotiate," she said firmly, "but from a position of strength." The negotiations took place in neutral space aboard a specially constructed diplomatic station. President Vasquez led the Earth delegation. Governor Telvanni represented the reformist faction within the Council. "Your weapons have changed everything," Telvanni admitted during the first session. "The old order is collapsing. We can either adapt or be destroyed." "What are you proposing?" asked President Vasquez. "A new galactic government. One based on voluntary membership and democratic principles. No more forced tribute. No more conquest without consent." "And if the traditionalist faction refuses to accept these changes?" Governor Telvanni's expression was grim. "Then there will be civil war. The Council empire will tear itself apart." President Vasquez considered the implications. A Council civil war would devastate dozens of star systems and kill billions of innocent beings. But continued oppression would kill even more over time. "Earth will support any government based on democratic principles and voluntary membership," she said finally. "But we will not tolerate any attempt to restore the old system of forced conquest." The negotiations continued for weeks. Meanwhile, the final armada continued its approach toward Earth. Intelligence reports suggested that the traditionalist faction planned to destroy Earth completely and then crush the rebellion throughout the galaxy. Admiral Kim prepared Earth's defenses for the coming battle. The Sol system now contained 1,500 railgun platforms and 300 defensive ships. Manufacturing facilities on Mars and Europa were producing ammunition at unprecedented rates. "We're as ready as we'll ever be," she reported to President Vasquez. "If they want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget." But the battle never came. 3 weeks before the final armada reached Earth, it simply stopped moving. Long-range sensors detected massive explosions throughout the fleet as ships turned their weapons on each other. The Council civil war had begun. War Prince Zekthar watched the sensor reports with fascination. "The traditionalist and reformist factions are destroying each other," he observed. "This is exactly what I feared would happen." "Is that good or bad for us?" asked Dr. Chen. "Both," replied Zekthar. "The immediate threat to Earth is eliminated, but the galaxy will be chaos for decades." President Vasquez made a decision that would define Earth's role in galactic affairs for generations to come. Instead of remaining neutral in the Council civil war, she committed Earth to supporting any faction that embraced democratic principles. "We didn't fight for our freedom just to watch others lose theirs," she announced to the Earth Council. "Operation Liberation continues until every species in the galaxy has the right to choose its own government." Admiral Kim's fleet began patrolling known shipping lanes, protecting refugee convoys and providing safe passage for species fleeing the Civil War. Human ships became symbols of hope throughout the galaxy. Dr. Chen's communication network evolved into something much larger. The Free Worlds Alliance established its headquarters on the diplomatic station, where the negotiations had taken place. Representatives from over 100 species worked together to create a new form of galactic government. The new constitution was simple and direct. Every species had the right to self-determination. No government could impose its will on another without consent. Disputes would be resolved through negotiation and arbitration, not conquest. 5 years after the first alien ships appeared in Earth's solar system, President Vasquez stood before the inaugural session of the Galactic Democratic Assembly. Representatives from 300 species filled the vast chamber. At the center of the room, the Earth flag hung alongside the banners of worlds that had never heard of humans until recently. "Today marks the beginning of a new era," she said in her opening address. "An era where strength comes not from the ability to conquer, but from the willingness to cooperate. Where peace is maintained not through fear, but through mutual respect." War Prince Zekthar, now serving as Earth's ambassador to the Assembly, watched from the diplomatic gallery. The species that had once been dismissed as primitive now led the largest democratic government in galactic history. Admiral Kim commanded a fleet that patrolled 2/3 of the galaxy, ensuring that no species could be forced into slavery or conquest. Her ships still carried railgun weapons, but they were used primarily as a deterrent. Most conflicts were now resolved through diplomacy. Dr. Chen directed an interstellar communication network that connected billions of beings across thousands of star systems. The signals that had once been ignored by the Galactic Council now carried messages of cooperation and friendship throughout the galaxy. And in research facilities throughout human space, scientists worked on new technologies that would benefit all species. The same innovative spirit that had created railgun weapons was now focused on solving problems like poverty, disease, and environmental destruction. The galaxy that had ignored Earth's peaceful signals for 3 years now listened carefully to every word humans spoke, not because they feared human weapons, but because they respected human wisdom. The species that had called themselves primitive had taught the galaxy what true civilization really meant.
Captain Tom Adams couldn't believe his eyes. The ship floating in the dock before him looked like it belonged in a museum, not active duty. Its hull was covered in dents and patches. Some parts were clearly different colors, showing where repairs had been made over the years. The name Defiant was painted on the side, though the letters were faded and chipped. "This has to be some kind of mistake," Tom said, turning to Admiral Bennett, who stood beside him. The Admiral, a tall man with gray hair and a stern face, shook his head. "No mistake, Captain. The Defiant is your new command." Tom walked closer to the ship, running his hand along the rough hull. The metal felt cold and worn under his fingers. "This thing looks like it would fall apart if we tried to start the engines. It's the oldest ship still in service," Admiral Bennett admitted. 30 years old. It was cutting edge when it was built. 30 years ago, Tom said, not hiding his disappointment. "Why are we getting this relic?" The Admiral's face softened slightly. "You know why, Tom. The Alliance Council is nervous about humans. We've only been members for 15 years. The older species don't trust our methods." Tom understood. Humans had joined the Galactic Alliance after being discovered by a deep space exploration team. Earth technology had been primitive compared to Alliance standards, but humans had adapted quickly. Too quickly, according to some Alliance members. Humans had a reputation for breaking rules, finding shortcuts, and ignoring traditions. "So they're sticking us on the worst ship in the fleet to keep us out of trouble," Tom said. "To keep you out of sight," Admiral Bennett corrected. "Your orders are to patrol the outer rim. It's mostly empty space with a few trading outposts and mining colonies." Tom walked around the ship, studying it from different angles. It was small for a cruiser, about half the size of modern Alliance vessels. Its weapon systems looked outdated, with old-style laser batteries instead of the plasma cannons used by newer ships. "The pirates in the outer rim would blow us apart," Tom said. "They have better ships than this." "Then avoid them," the Admiral said simply. "Your job is to show the flag, not fight battles." Tom's communicator beeped. He checked the message and sighed. "My crew is arriving. How do I tell them this is our new assignment?" "They're all human, just like you," Admiral Bennett said. "Maybe they'll surprise you with their creativity." The first shuttle docked nearby, and 5 crew members walked out. Tom recognized Lieutenant Maria Wilson, his chief engineer. She was young for her position, only 30, but brilliant with machines. She spotted the Defiant and her eyes widened. "Is that our ship?" she asked, hurrying over. Instead of disappointment, her voice held excitement. "Unfortunately, yes," Tom answered. Maria pulled out a small device and began scanning the ship. "Amazing. This is a Vraxian design. They don't make these anymore." "Because they're obsolete," Tom pointed out. "Because they're overbuilt," Maria corrected him. "The Vraxians always made things stronger than they needed to be. This hull is 3 times thicker than modern standards." Admiral Bennett smiled slightly. "See, already finding the positive side." More shuttles arrived, bringing the rest of Tom's crew. Lieutenant James Parker, the weapons officer, studied the laser batteries with a thoughtful expression. Security Officer Kate Brown walked the perimeter of the ship, nodding as if approving its defensible shape. Communications Officer Robert Johnson immediately began checking the sensor array mounted on the top of the ship. None of them seemed as disappointed as Tom had expected. "You have your orders, Captain," Admiral Bennett said, preparing to leave. "Report to the Outer Rim Station in 2 weeks. That should give you time to make the Defiant spaceworthy." After the Admiral left, Tom gathered his officers on the main deck of the ship. The interior was as disappointing as the exterior. The command center was small, with outdated control panels and worn seats. The view screen was tiny compared to modern ships. "Well, this is what we've been given," Tom said to his team. "I know it's not what any of us expected." "It's better," Maria said, surprising everyone. "Better? How is this better than a modern cruiser?" Tom asked. Maria activated a holographic display showing the ship's schematics. Modern ships are optimized. Every space is used for something specific. But this old design has so much unused space. Look at these areas between the outer and inner hulls. They're just empty. James Parker joined her, pointing at the weapon systems. "And these laser arrays are simple. We could modify them easily. Modern weapons are locked by security protocols." Robert Johnson nodded in agreement. "The communication system is basic, but that means we can access the hardware directly. New systems are all software controlled." Tom looked at his excited crew, then back at the decrepit ship. For the first time, he began to see potential instead of problems. "Are you saying we could improve this ship?" he asked. Kate Brown smiled. "The Alliance gave us the Defiant because they think it's harmless. They think it will keep us humans out of the way. But they don't understand how humans think." Maria added, "We see this ship differently. We see what it could become." Tom felt a smile spreading across his face. The Alliance had meant to punish humans by giving them the weakest ship in the fleet. But perhaps they had made a mistake. Perhaps they had given humans exactly what they needed: freedom to experiment. "All right," Tom said, a new energy in his voice. "Let's see what we can do with this old ship. Maria, I want a complete review of all systems. James, check those weapons and see what we can improve. Robert, the sensors need upgrading. Kate, security systems." His officers nodded, already making plans. "The Alliance wants us to stay out of trouble," Tom continued. "But they didn't say we couldn't make some improvements to our ship. As long as we follow our patrol orders, what we do with the Defiant is our business." The crew dispersed, each heading to their area of responsibility. Tom remained on the bridge, looking at the worn captain's chair. He sat down, feeling the old cushion sink under his weight. "The weakest ship in the fleet," he murmured. "Let's see if we can change that." 3 weeks had passed since Captain Tom Adams and his crew took command of the Defiant. They were already 1 week late reporting to their patrol assignment in the Outer Rim. Tom knew he would have to explain this delay to his superiors, but he wasn't worried. What was happening on his ship was worth any punishment. Tom walked through corridors that no longer looked like they belonged to an old dying vessel. Panels had been removed from walls, revealing the spaces between the inner and outer hulls. These spaces now contain new equipment, some of it built from parts taken from the ship's original systems, some brought on board by crew members, and some created using the ship's small manufacturing unit. He entered the engine room and found Lieutenant Maria Wilson covered in grease, her head inside an open panel. "How's it going?" Tom asked. Maria pulled her head out and grinned. "Almost done connecting the new power system. Want to see something cool?" Without waiting for an answer, she pressed a button on her datapad. A diagram appeared, showing the ship's power grid. The original design had straight lines running from the main reactor to various systems. The new design looked like a spider web, with power lines crossing and connecting in patterns that made no sense to Tom. "What am I looking at?" he asked. "The old system wasted about 40% of the energy from the reactor," Maria explained. "One path, one direction. But look at this. We've created power loops. Energy that isn't used by one system gets sent to another, or stored in these capacitors we built from mining equipment parts." Tom studied the diagram. "Is it safe?" "Safer than the original," Maria assured him. "The old system would overload if one section took damage. This one can reroute power instantly, and we've doubled the output without changing the reactor." Tom nodded, impressed but also concerned. "This isn't in any Alliance engineering manual, is it?" Maria laughed. "Not even close. The Alliance would never approve this design. Too many safety protocols would be triggered." "Then let's not tell them," Tom decided. He had already made the choice to bend rules when necessary. The Alliance had given them a ship that couldn't perform its duties properly. They were simply making it work. He left the engine room and headed for the weapons section. Lieutenant James Parker was working with 2 other crew members, assembling something that looked nothing like standard Alliance weapons. "Progress report?" Tom asked. James looked up. "We've completely rebuilt the laser array. The original design had 6 heavy lasers that fired straight ahead. Powerful for their time, but too slow to track modern ships." He pointed to a strange crystal assembly. "We've split each laser into 12 smaller beams using these crystals. So instead of 6 big shots, we get 72 smaller ones. Not as powerful individually, but together they deliver more energy on target. And they'll overwhelm enemy shields," Tom realized. "Most shield systems are designed to block a few powerful hits, not dozens of smaller ones." "Exactly," James agreed. "Plus, we can fire in all directions now. We installed rotating mounts. The Defiant didn't have enough power before, but with Maria's improvements." Tom's communicator beeped. It was Communications Officer Robert Johnson. "Captain, we have a problem. Alliance inspection shuttle approaching. ETA 15 minutes. Tom frowned. This was unexpected. Alliance inspections usually happened on a fixed schedule, not randomly during assignments. "They must know we're late to our patrol area," Tom said. "Everyone, listen up. Implement Protocol Ghost. Now." Protocol Ghost was something Tom had created for exactly this situation. Within minutes, crew members were rushing to hide their modifications. Panels were replaced over the new equipment. Holographic projectors, originally meant for navigation displays, were reprogrammed to show images of the ship's original systems. The new weapons were hidden behind false walls. Tom met Inspector Droll in the docking bay. The Tarlaxian was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 arms. All 4 held different scanning devices. "Captain Adams," Droll said coldly, "your ship was due at Outer Rim Station 15 days ago. Explain your delay." Tom bowed slightly, showing respect. "My apologies, Inspector. We encountered problems with the main engines. The Defiant is an old ship." "Indeed," Droll agreed. "I must inspect all systems before you can proceed." "Of course," Tom said, leading the way. "Though I should warn you, many systems are functioning at minimal levels." For the next 2 hours, Inspector Droll moved through the ship, scanning and recording. Everything he saw matched the original specifications. Old, barely functioning equipment that struggled to perform basic functions. The holographic projections worked perfectly, showing systems that appeared to be operating at only 60% efficiency. In the engine room, Drell shook his head at the reactor. This power output is unacceptable. I'm surprised this vessel can achieve faster than light travel at all. We manage, Tom said humbly, while Maria bit her lip to stop herself from defending her hidden modifications. Finally, Drell completed his inspection. This ship is barely spaceworthy, Captain. I will recommend decommissioning after your current assignment. We understand, Tom replied. We'll do our best with what we have. After the inspector left, the crew gathered in the cargo bay, which had been converted into a workshop. Hidden beneath the floor were manufacturing units that could produce parts and equipment without relying on Alliance supply stations. That was close, Maria said, wiping sweat from her forehead. But we did it, Tom replied. And now we can finish our work without interference. Captain, Robert called from a communication panel. We're receiving a distress signal. Merchant vessel under attack by pirates in the Vega sector. Everyone looked at Tom. The Vega sector was close, but responding would reveal that the Defiant could travel much faster than its specifications indicated. How many pirate ships? Tom asked. 3, Robert answered. The merchant is calling for any Alliance vessel to assist. Tom smiled. His crew had worked day and night for 3 weeks. They had transformed the weakest ship in the fleet into something new, something untested in real combat. Set course for the Vega sector, maximum speed, he ordered. Let's see what our little nightmare can do. The Defiant's engines powered up, drawing energy from the modified reactor. The ship moved away from the station, slowly at first, until it was out of visual range. Then, with a burst of speed that would have shocked any Alliance observer, it shot into hyperspace. The weakest ship in the fleet was about to reveal its new teeth. The Defiant dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Vega sector. Captain Tom Adams leaned forward in his command chair, studying the scene on the view screen. 3 sleek pirate ships surrounded a large merchant vessel. The merchant ship's hull was already damaged, with burn marks showing where the pirates' weapons had hit. Pirates are using Black Star Guild ships. Lieutenant James Parker reported from the weapons station. Fast attack vessels with powerful shields. Their weapons can cut through standard hulls easily. They haven't noticed us yet, Security Officer Kate Brown added. They're focused on the merchant ship. Tom nodded. Good. Robert, send a distress signal. Make it sound like our engines are failing. Communications Officer Robert Johnson looked confused. A distress signal, sir. We're supposed to be helping them. We will help them, Tom assured him. But first, let's make those pirates think we're easy prey. Robert nodded and began sending the fake distress call. On the screen, one of the pirate ships broke away from the merchant vessel and turned toward the Defiant. They've spotted us, Kate reported. The large ship is coming to investigate. Good, Tom said. Everyone remember the plan. Make them think we're helpless until I give the signal. The pirate ship grew larger on the view screen as it approached. It was a modern design, sleek and dangerous, with weapons ports open and ready to fire. They're hailing us, Robert announced. Put them on screen, Tom ordered. Everyone look afraid. The screen changed to show the face of a Drexian pirate. His skin was gray and rough, with scars crossing his face. Sharp teeth showed when he smiled. Alliance vessel. The pirate said in a rough voice, prepare to be boarded. Surrender now, and your crew will be sold to labor colonies instead of killed. Tom put on his best frightened expression. Please, we're just a patrol ship. Our engines are failing. We can't even fight back. The pirate laughed, a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. The mighty Alliance sends its weakest ship to rescue merchants. This will be easy. The transmission ended. The pirate ship moved closer, a bright beam extending from its front section. They're using a tractor beam to pull us in, Maria reported from the engineering station. Her fingers hovered over a hidden control panel. Ready when you are, Captain. Tom watched the distance between the ships decrease. Timing would be crucial. Wait for it. Wait. Now. Maria slammed her hand down on the control panel. Instantly, The Defiant's power signature changed from barely functioning to fully operational. The hidden systems came online, drawing power from the modified reactor. When the pirate's tractor beam connected with the Defiant, Maria activated another system. Instead of being pulled in, the Defiant sent a massive power surge back through the tractor beam. On the view screen, lights flickered across the pirate ship as its systems overloaded. "Their shields are down," James reported excitedly. "Fire modified weapons," Tom ordered. "Target their engines and weapon systems." James pressed a series of buttons. The Defiant shuddered slightly as its laser array activated, but instead of firing 6 large beams, dozens of smaller beams shot out, each targeting a different part of the pirate ship. On the screen, the pirate vessel seemed to be hit everywhere at once. Small explosions erupted across its hull as critical systems were damaged. "Direct hits on all targets," James reported. "Their main power is offline. Weapons disabled. Engines offline." Tom nodded, satisfied. "The other pirates?" "They've noticed," Kate said. "They're breaking off from the merchant ship and coming for us." The remaining 2 pirate ships abandoned the merchant vessel and turned toward the Defiant, firing their weapons as they approached. "Evasive maneuvers," Tom ordered. The Defiant moved with surprising speed and agility for a ship its size, avoiding most of the incoming fire. A few shots hit the hull, but instead of penetrating, they seemed to be absorbed by the outer layer. "Ablative armor working perfectly," Maria reported proudly. "The special coating is absorbing the energy and dispersing it." "They're trying to surround us," Kate warned as the pirate ships split up, one going to each side of the Defiant. Tom smiled. This was exactly what he had hoped for. "Deploy the drones." James pressed another button. Hidden compartments opened along the Defiant's hull, and 12 small objects shot out into space. "What are those?" the pirate captain demanded, his face appearing again on the view screen. "What trick is this?" "No trick," Tom replied, dropping his frightened act. "Just a little something we made in our spare time." The drones, small devices cobbled together from spare parts, each carried a powerful electromagnetic pulse generator. They moved quickly toward the pirate ships, attaching to their hulls. "All drones attached," James reported. "Ready to activate." "Do it," Tom ordered. James pressed a button. The drones activated simultaneously, sending electromagnetic pulses through the pirate ships. On the view screen, the pirate vessels went dark as their electrical systems failed. "Both ships disabled," Kate reported. "All weapons and propulsion systems offline." Tom stood up from his command chair. "Robert, contact the merchant ship. Let them know they're safe now." "Yes, sir," Robert replied, sending the message. "They're responding. They want to know how we did that. They say the Defiant is known as the weakest ship in the Alliance fleet." Tom laughed. "Tell them we made some improvements." The merchant captain's face appeared on the screen. He was a Tyrellian, with green skin and 4 eyes that all blinked in amazement. "I don't understand," the merchant said. "Your ship disabled 3 Black Star Guild vessels in minutes. How is this possible?" "Human ingenuity," Tom replied simply. "We're good at making do with what we have." After ensuring the merchant ship could continue safely, Tom ordered a message sent to Alliance Command, reporting 3 pirate vessels disabled and ready for pickup by Alliance security forces. As the Defiant prepared to leave the area, Tom gathered his officers on the bridge. "Well done, everyone," he said. "Our modifications performed even better than expected." "The pirates never knew what hit them," James said with a grin. "And the best part," Maria added, "is that from the outside, we still look like the same old broken-down ship." "We should expect more attention after this," Kate warned. "The Alliance will want to know how we defeated 3 modern pirate vessels." Tom nodded. "Let them ask their questions. We've proven what humans can do with the right opportunity. The Defiant may have been the weakest ship in the fleet when they gave it to us, but now it's a nightmare for anyone who thinks we're easy targets," Robert finished. The Defiant entered hyperspace, leaving the disabled pirate ships behind. Word would spread quickly about what had happened here today. The Alliance's weakest ship had transformed into something unexpected, something dangerous. And this was just the beginning. News of the Defiant's victory over 3 pirate ships spread quickly through Alliance space. Captain Tom Adams wasn't surprised when, just 2 weeks later, his ship received orders to return to Alliance headquarters immediately. "They want to know how we did it," Tom told his officers as they gathered in the command center. "The question is, how much do we tell them?" "The truth might get us in trouble," Maria said. "We broke at least 15 Alliance engineering regulations with our modifications. But we also saved that merchant ship and captured 3 pirate vessels," James pointed out. "That has to count for something." Tom nodded. "We'll be honest about what we did, but we'll focus on the results. The Alliance cares about keeping their trade routes safe. We helped do that." When the Defiant docked at Alliance headquarters, Admiral Bennett was waiting. His face was serious as Tom stepped off the ship. "You've caused quite a stir, Captain," the Admiral said. "The Council wants to see you immediately." As they walked through the large station, the Admiral spoke quietly. "They're talking about court-martial, Adams, unauthorized modifications to Alliance property, falsifying inspection reports, operating dangerous, untested systems." Tom kept his face calm. "The Defiant performed exactly as needed. We saved lives. By breaking every rule in the book." The Admiral lowered his voice further. "Look, I'm human too. I understand why you did it. But the other species don't think like we do. They value rules and stability above results. Maybe that's why they're losing the war with the Dominion," Tom replied. The Admiral couldn't argue with that. The Dominion, a group of aggressive species from another part of the galaxy, had been attacking Alliance territory for years. Despite having better technology, the Alliance was losing because they were too slow to adapt. Inside the Council chamber, representatives from 12 different species sat in a semicircle. They all looked serious, some even angry. The Chief Counselor, an ancient Valerian with pale white skin and 6 eyes, spoke first. "Captain Adams, explain these modifications to the Defiant. Our regulations exist for a reason. Untested systems are dangerous to crews and civilians." Tom stepped forward. "With respect, Counselor, every modification was tested thoroughly before use. My engineering team calculated all possible failure scenarios." "Without proper oversight," a Creelan representative shouted. His red face showed his anger. "The same oversight that approves ships that consistently fail against Dominion tactics," Tom challenged. "The Alliance faces an enemy that adapts quickly. We need to adapt too." For the next 3 hours, the Council questioned Tom about each modification. He explained how they had repurposed outdated systems, combined technologies in new ways, and created new capabilities from spare parts. "Your weapons modifications are particularly troubling," one counselor said. "Splitting the beam reduces the safety features built into our laser systems. It also makes the weapons more effective," Tom replied. "Pirates don't care about Alliance safety regulations when they attack our ships." "And these drones with electromagnetic pulse generators," another counselor added. "They could be used against Alliance vessels just as easily as against pirates." "Any weapon can be used against its maker," Tom said. "The question is, do they work? Do they help us protect Alliance citizens?" The answer is yes. The debate continued, with some counselors arguing for harsh punishment and others suggesting that the results justified the methods. Throughout it all, Tom remained calm, explaining each decision his crew had made. Finally, the Valerian chief counselor raised a hand for silence. "Captain Adams, please wait outside while we discuss this matter." Tom left the chamber and found his crew waiting anxiously in the hallway. "How bad is it?" Maria asked. "Hard to say," Tom answered. "Some of them understand what we did and why. Others are stuck on the fact that we broke the rules." "But we proved the modifications work," James said. They can't argue with results. Actually, they can, Tom said with a small smile. That's what bureaucrats do best. An hour later, Tom was called back into the chamber. The counselors' faces gave nothing away as he stood before them. The Valerian spoke. Captain Adams, while we cannot approve of your methods, we cannot argue with your results. The Defiant will undergo a complete safety inspection. Any modifications deemed truly dangerous will be removed. Tom nodded, hiding his relief. This was better than he had expected. But the Valerian wasn't finished. However, we are establishing a new innovation division within the Alliance fleet. Your crew will lead it. Tom couldn't believe what he was hearing. The Alliance needs unconventional thinking. The Valerian admitted reluctantly. Perhaps humans have something to teach us after all. As Tom left the chamber, Admiral Bennett fell into step beside him. Congratulations, or maybe I should say, I'm sorry. They're going to watch everything you do now. Tom smiled. They can try, but first, we need to get back to the Defiant. My crew was working on some new ideas before we left. The Admiral shook his head but couldn't hide his own smile. You humans never learn, do you? We learn all the time, Tom replied. We just don't always follow the expected path. When Tom returned to his ship, he found the crew gathered in the cargo bay. They were working on something new, a device Tom didn't recognize. What's this? He asked Maria. We've been studying the Dominion shields, she explained. They use a quantum algorithm that predicts energy weapons and adjusts to block them. That's why conventional Alliance weapons can't penetrate them. And you think you found a way around it? Tom asked, already knowing the answer. Maria grinned. We're calling it a quantum mirror. In theory, it could reflect the Dominion's own weapons back at them, but with an inverted quantum signature that their shields would recognize as friendly fire. Tom looked at the device, then at his excited crew. The Alliance had given humans their weakest ship, hoping to keep them out of the way. Instead, they had created a platform for innovation that might change the course of the war. The new Innovation Division is going to need a flagship, Tom said. I think the Defiant will do nicely. As the crew returned to their work, Tom couldn't help but smile at the irony. The weakest ship in the fleet had become the Alliance's best hope for victory, and it was only getting started. 6 months had passed since the Defiant became the flagship of the Alliance's new Innovation Division. Under Captain Tom Adams' leadership, the ship had continued to evolve with new modifications and improvements. The Alliance Council had reluctantly approved many of their changes, though they still didn't know about everything hidden within the ship's hull. The Defiant and Tom's crew had spent these months testing their newest creation, the quantum mirror technology. Maria's team had worked day and night to perfect it, and now they finally believed it was ready. But they hadn't had a chance to test it against actual Dominion weapons. The Dominion fleet had been quiet recently, gathering strength for something big. Alliance intelligence reports warned of a major attack coming soon, but no one knew where or when. Tom was in his quarters reviewing supply requests when the ship's alarm sounded. Captain to the bridge. Robert's voice called over the intercom. Emergency. Tom rushed to the command center. On the main view screen, a tactical display showed a terrifying sight. 30 Dominion warships had crossed the border into Alliance space. They broke through the defensive line at the Veridan sector, Kate reported. 3 Alliance outposts have already been destroyed. The fleet is mobilizing, but they'll take hours to respond. Tom studied the display. What's in the Dominion's path? 2 civilian stations and a colony world, Robert answered. Millions of people. Tom made his decision instantly. Set course for the Veridan sector, maximum speed. Alert all crew to battle stations. Sir, James said carefully, that's 30 Dominion warships. Even with our modifications, we're just one vessel. Tom nodded. I know, but we have something they haven't seen before. It's time to test the quantum mirror for real. The Defiant jumped to hyperspace, pushing its modified engines to their limits. In the engine room, Maria monitored the new systems carefully. They were exceeding the ship's original speed capabilities by 4 times, but the reinforced hull held together. Alliance Command is hailing us, Robert reported as they traveled. They're ordering all ships to gather at Sector 7 before engaging the Dominion. Tell them we're conducting a reconnaissance mission, Tom replied. We'll just take a look and report back. It wasn't exactly a lie. They would look at the Dominion fleet. What happened after that would depend on whether their new technology worked. When the Defiant dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Veridan sector, they immediately detected the Dominion fleet. The massive warships were moving in perfect formation toward their targets. They'd spotted us, Kate announced. 3 ships breaking off to intercept. Tom smiled. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. Sir, James looked confused. We need to get their attention, Tom explained. Maria, is the quantum mirror ready? Maria nodded from her station. Ready, Captain. But we've never tested it against actual Dominion weapons. No time like the present, Tom replied. He addressed the whole crew through the ship's communication system. Everyone, this is what we've been preparing for. The Defiant was once the weakest ship in the fleet. Today, we prove that human ingenuity can transform weakness into strength. The 3 Dominion ships approached rapidly. They were huge compared to the Defiant, each one at least 5 times larger. They're charging weapons, James reported. Hold position, Tom ordered. Let them fire first. The crew watched anxiously as the Dominion ships came into range. Then, as one, the enemy vessels fired. Bright beams of energy shot toward the Defiant. Quantum mirror activated, Maria called out, pressing a series of controls. A shimmering field appeared around the Defiant. When the Dominion weapons hit it, something amazing happened. Instead of damaging the ship, the energy beams reflected back toward the Dominion vessels. But with a subtle difference. Their quantum signature had been inverted. The Dominion shields, programmed to block enemy fire, allowed these beams to pass through, recognizing them as friendly. All 3 ships took heavy damage from their own weapons. It works, Maria shouted, excitement in her voice. The quantum mirror works. Target their propulsion systems, Tom ordered. Fire conventional weapons. James pressed his controls, and the Defiant's modified laser array fired. Dozens of small beams struck precise points on the damaged Dominion ships, disabling their engines. The main Dominion fleet has noticed, Kate warned. They're all turning toward us now. Tom nodded. Good. That's what we want. They're not attacking civilians while they're focused on us. Sir, Alliance Command is hailing us again, Robert reported. Admiral Bennett wants to know what we're doing. Put him through, Tom said. Admiral Bennett's face appeared on screen, his expression a mixture of anger and concern. Adams, what are you doing? You were ordered to rendezvous with the fleet. Testing our new technology, Admiral, Tom replied calmly. And it works. The quantum mirror can reflect Dominion weapons back at them. The Admiral's eyes widened. That's impossible. Watch the tactical display, Tom suggested. We're about to demonstrate on a larger scale. The remaining Dominion ships had formed a half circle around the Defiant, preparing to attack together. Now, James, Tom ordered. James pressed another control. From hidden launch tubes, dozens of small objects shot out from the Defiant. What are those? The Admiral asked. Mini-mirrors, Tom explained. Smaller versions of our quantum mirror technology, designed to attach to enemy ships. The small devices spread out, attaching themselves to the hulls of the Dominion vessels. When the Dominion fleet fired at the Defiant, their weapons' energy was caught not just by the ship's main quantum mirror, but also by these smaller devices. Energy beams bounced between ships, creating a web of destructive fire that the Dominion's own shields allowed to pass through. Within minutes, the mighty Dominion fleet was in chaos. Ships fired randomly, trying to destroy the devices attached to their hulls. Others attempted to retreat, only to find their engines disabled by precision fire from the Defiant. Launch the boarding drones, Tom ordered. Another set of devices shot out from the Defiant. These attached to the Dominion command ships and began overriding their computer systems. On the view screen, Admiral Bennett watched in amazement. "Adams, how did you do this?" Tom smiled. "We didn't see a useless old ship, Admiral. We saw potential that no one else recognized. The Defiant isn't special because of its technology. It's special because humans refused to accept limitations that existed only in regulations and tradition." Within an hour, the battle was over. The Dominion fleet that had threatened millions of Alliance citizens was neutralized. Some ships were disabled. Others were under Alliance control through the boarding drones. When the Alliance fleet finally arrived, they found the Defiant, once the weakest ship in the fleet, floating among the wreckage of the most powerful enemy the Alliance had ever faced. As news spread throughout Alliance space, the story grew into legend. The humans had taken a forgotten, outdated vessel and transformed it into a nightmare that had single-handedly changed the course of the war. And it had all started because someone thought giving humans the weakest ship would keep them out of trouble. They couldn't have been more wrong.